So good day to all. This is Abhilasha Nagarajan representing the Indian Institute for Human Settlements. I have with me Kavita Wankhede, who's also the co-presenter of this presentation. We would be happy to take your questions in the end of the presentation, whatever you post in the comment boxes. So we are here to talk about gender and social inclusion issues across the sanitation chain in Tamil Nadu. This is an assessment and strategy development report. So along the full chain of urban sanitation, there are a complexity of stakeholders involved, such as public, private, non-profits, and communities, including masons, desludging operators, households, and treatment plant operators, to name just a few. Tamil Nadu is a state in southern India, and the Tamil Nadu Urban Sanitation Support Program, or TNUSSP, was launched in November 2015 as a technical support unit to support the state government to effect improvements along the urban sanitation chain and scale fecal sludge management, or FSM, across 663 towns in the state. Besides scaling, TNUSSP has ensured that there is a strong buy-in for FSM from the range of stakeholders as we discussed previously, thus creating an enabling environment and institutional framework for FSM. Importantly, TNUSSP has framed initiatives that deliver inclusive sanitation outcomes, focusing on occupational health, safety, and welfare of sanitation workers, school wash, gender, and MHM. So given this, let us take a step back and look at how gender perspective is integrated in sanitation. Most research so far has focused on accessing water, or the disproportionate burden on women, or rural sanitation and menstrual health management. While most sanitation programs have focused on individual household toilets and shared toilets, addressing lack of facilities in public spaces, or the larger question revolving around safety for women. Key gap is that focus has not moved beyond access part of the sanitation chain. Neither have programs with gender-sensitive frame established a remarkably successful scaling or replication model. So to understand GSI across the FCS, TNUSSP has conducted a study in 2 locations in Tamil Nadu. However, given the fact that gender and social inclusion, or GSI, is complex, it has been looked on from 5 lenses or rationales, which we may have come across in various studies or in practical experiences. So the typical lenses for looking at GSI has been the efficiency lens, which you can also see in the slide. And this could potentially build on to the stereotypes. For instance, women are chosen as custodians of household sanitation and water. Such stereotypes need to be broken. Hence, this report looks at GSI issues through 4 other lenses, which are listed below the efficiency lens. That is, if GSI is not considered, the harm so caused is recorded under the do no harm lens. Similarly, the welfare argument focuses on health and well-being rationale. The rights argument focuses on equal rights to safe wash for all. And the empowerment lens positions GSI as a strategy to increase the power of women and other marginalized groups, not just individually, but also collectively. Some examples are also recorded in parallel, which you can see in this slide. So far, we saw the context to the study. Now we will get into see some key findings mapped across the chain by lenses. The primary findings have been recorded in the first row, as you can see, and the secondary findings have been recorded in the second row. Now, if I can quickly swift through the slides, you would see question marks or something like limited documentation, which is mentioned in some boxes, which simply means that we have not found any evidence for these, pertaining to the same. And we would love to hear from anyone in the room if you have come across any examples. Now I will broadly run through the findings. So if you look at efficiency, the general tendency to position women as the center of providing access to sanitation in many instances has restricted them as users across the chain. In emptying and transportation, we will see traditional division of roles between men and women. However, on the service side of the chain, we see limited documentation and evidence from the field. So if we move on to the do no harm lens quickly, the findings suggest that the location, lack of toilets, or poor condition of toilets can cause harm to the users. In the emptying and transportation part, the overall safety of sanitation workers is always not considered. So in the welfare lens, as an example, let us discuss the treatment and reuse related issues. There are no sex desegregated toilets, the treatment plants at the construction sites, and they are also in many cases remotely located. So in the long run, this can lead to health issues and discomfort for the women workers. We are going to discuss the rights and the empowerment lens more in detail. So looking at the rights perspective closely, it is well known that the tenure security is an issue to provide access to toilet for the urban poor. This affects women and girls as they have specific needs and frequency of using toilets. Transgender people face social stigma and mixed reactions when they use shared facilities and may face further exclusion when given segregated toilets. Hence, this needs sensitive case-to-case solutions. Also, it is not just the wage gap, but even in identification and providing opportunities for skilling and training. Let's take the example of masons. Women do have unequal access. In emptying and transportation, majority of informal sanitation worker, for example, 60% in our study area were to the security benefits. So moving ahead, some key findings on the empowerment lens include that if women's group are empowered on one part of the sanitation chain, which is mostly access, it is necessarily not so across the chain. Also, these women's group rarely have the capital and the capacities to buy trucks and desludging equipment. There are no women groups in our study area or women engineers coming together to take up contracts for managing or constructing FSTPs. So this is the end of key findings. We would also like to highlight that we studied solid waste management and menstrual health management, but they're not presented here for the lack of time. So since policy and governance are key drivers of GSI, we would slightly take a detour now to discuss the same. So governance is an important lever to position women from users to professionals. There is a clear imbalance in gender representation, especially as the roles get more technical and senior, according to our study findings. And also, gender responsive assessment and budgeting and its assessment is lacking. If we want to intervene in gender, let alone anything else, but we do not have even the basic sex disaggregated data to inform our interventions. And women do not often have access to mechanisms which enable equal access to credit or those which encourage women to take tenders across the FCS. The larger picture around this is, however, the policy landscape. And over the years, we do see that policy and guidelines have recognized the need for gender mainstreaming, but the focus must move beyond access to look at the whole chain. And it must also recognize the interconnections of gender with age, disabilities, and the like. The Swachh Bharat Mission Urban in India is a good step ahead, and its implementation remains to be seen. So now we will see the broad findings and then move into specific recommendations for way forward. Overall, we must address the research gap on GSI issues across FCS and advocate for policies, guidelines, and programming from this perspective. We must also look to strengthen women's agency across the chain by enabling women professionals, leaders, and entrepreneurs. The specific way forward is looked at from the city level as well as the state level in the Indian context. At the city level, it is necessary to ensure gender-friendly facilities such as toilets and also provide access to safe sanitation services to all. The equipment, tools, and vehicles must be ergonomically designed to suit everyone. The treatment facilities must also be gender-friendly to enable women staff to work at ease. It is absolutely needed to enable women and women groups to take technical roles and tenders along the FCS and link them to relevant institutions. There must be GSI standards for all roles we envision across the FCS. At the state level, to support these interventions, it is necessary to align budgeting and programming to GSI. To carry this forward, The institution must focus on capacity building and work towards gender sensitive culture, norms, and practices at workplaces. So thank you. And I will leave the slide on for questions, comments, and suggestions. You can visit our website to know more about our work, and also read more on gender and sanitation in the report mentioned in the slide. And you can also visit our social media handles to know more about what is happening in our program. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. My name is Ebenezer Chuga, Chief Operating Officer for IDE Ghana Sama. And today I'm presenting on ensuring women's active role across sanitation value chain. And it's in a context of the women of Sama. And basically, just to give you a little context about Sama and IDE. So Sama is a social enterprise incubated under IDE Ghana, and since 2016, and the whole idea of Sama is to be very active and in the leading of the sales of toilet facility in the three northern regions of Ghana. And the main thing that we started with is to be able to target the rural communities in the three northern regions to sell valuable products to the people in the northern region. What we did is to kind of like set up a brand which is going to be known for its value and what we do as a sanitation enterprise. So in 2016, we set up the Sama branding, trying to sell toilet facilities within the three northern regions. So we build up a model by trying to understand what the people want and then what they desire for. So we use an ACD approach to develop this, and we set up a one-stop shop which allows customers or potential customers to just subscribe into our facility and then be able to get the toilet facility in a short period of time. So we design, the engineers design a toilet facility that actually kind of like considered all the relevant aspirations, desires, and the value for money for our customers to be able to kind of like acquire the toilet facility. And when we were able to find the product and develop the product, we designed a model which allows us to kind of visit household door to door by a door-to-door approach with the relevant stakeholders and also the sales agents that are trained to be able to sell our toilets from house to house. What we did was to take each and every district having young and willing youth who actually were trained to build our toilet facilities. So in Sama, what we did was we have the door-to-door sales agents, and then we train local entrepreneurs who will be like the supply chain actors for our toilet facility. What again we did was to be able to provide a financing option for our customers. So the financing option means we realized that from our deep dive research, we realized that people are unable to actually own toilet facilities on their own on cash basis because they feel they have priorities for other expenses than having a toilet facility. So what we did was to provide a financing option for it. So if you need a toilet facility from Sama, all you need is to subscribe with a customer, subscribe with a sales agent. The sales agent upload that into our Salesforce app, and then this is synchronized directly. And then you have an option to either choose a cash product or choose an installment product. We have supply chain actors who actually come in to provide the toilet facility in a month. So in total, we spend about like within less than 30 days for one to get to own a toilet facility. Again, whilst we are doing it, we are also recording the impact that we have created since 2016. So we started 2016 with 3 toilets in a month, and then we keep growing each and every month and also scaling up into other territories. So over the period, we have been able to impact 63,000 people, 63,563,000 people with the toilet facilities that we created. These are both within the rural and then peri-urban areas. And how we are able to reach those people is through the installation of 8,121 toilet facilities within the rural and the peri-urban areas. When we started with few territories or few market areas within the northern region. Whilst we keep expanding and we're finding new opportunities, we keep expanding into new districts. As of today, we have reached 42 districts in Ghana, both within the northern region and some part of the southern region. And then also we have been able to create 190 businesses across our operational areas. And just to put that in context, a minimum of 3 people sets up like one business. So if you do the mathematics, we are doing like 190 businesses times 3 people, which is giving us a significant number of revenue generation for individuals within the rural and then the peri-urban areas. What also, whilst we keep moving along this line, what we try to do is how do we find new opportunities for the business and how do we develop the business into a more bigger portfolios. So whilst we have the household over within 2018, we found an opportunity to create a mobile dislodging facility, which we call the Shift Master facility. What the Shift Master does is it enters into the unserved and underserved areas who are not supplied by the standard vacuum truck operators. So the Shift Master actually enters there and collects the ship. So what we do is we build a flexible model that allows people to dislodge without paying as huge figures as the standard vacuum tracker operators will pay. Whilst we developed this over the period of time, we realized that we were making a significant impact on the life of people. And even beyond summer, we had customers who were actually patronizing our mobile truck to dislodge their services because one, they feel it's cheaper, and then it is easy to access customers anywhere they find themselves because it's smaller and is able to maneuver through their roads or their settlement to dislodge the toilet facility. When we started rising from this, we realized that that is a good opportunity, and therefore we could also capitalize on creating some value from the sludge that we collect. So one, we have provided a toilet facility. The second time is provided a system where the sludge are being able to be collected from the household and transported to the treatment site. And then in 2019, later part of 2019, we started with the management of the fecal sludge. And this was a partnership we had with Arab, which is a UK engineering firm, to be able to build a value out of sludge. So over the later part of 2019 to 2020, and then till now, we've been able to come up with some few technologies that we help to develop the sludge into either fertilizer, manure, or let's say food, animal protein, and all that. There were a number of technologies that we dealt with. Just to give you some numbers and more to deep dive into involving women into our sanitation value chain. So if you look at the graphs, you have on the left, you have that of the males, and then on the right, you have that of the females. And then you realize that for each of these sections, you see that men were more dominant of each of the situations. So If you look at the dislodging services, you realize that over 6,000 men have requested for the toilet facility as against 2,000 for women. If you look at the dislodging services, you also realize that in terms of requests, men do more of the requests than women. And then if you look at the fourth one, which is the entrepreneurship or women into the building of a toilet facility, you realize that about 90% of the people are males, and then very little of them, of the percentage, are female business owners. The one that clearly gives, more dominance to women is the usage. So the question we are asking ourselves is, how can we actually make an impact in the sanitation value chain? If the significant users are women, then it gives a clear indication that there should be more involvement of women in our sanitation value chain, and how we will be able to actually develop our models considering how women plays the role. So in our context, to try to understand that and put gender into our deep dive, what we did was to do a deep dive activity, or a deep dive mainstreaming activity, where we wanted to understand how can women play maximum role, or how can we give a leverage to women also to play part in sanitation. So first of all, we tried creating a gender mainstream activity where women are encouraged and trained to involve sanitation in their daily activity. And also, we also considered some few instances where we visited the universities and then tried to kind of liaise with them to get young women who are in the engineering space, who are interested to also develop their skills to become our local entrepreneurs, so that we can have more women in the action of toilet production. Also, we tried considering young women in most of our sales. So if you look at our sales numbers in terms of those sales agents who do the door-to-door activity, most of them now, we have about 60% of our women who are, 60% of our sales agents who are now females, and this is intentional because we started scouting and looking out for interested young women who will be willing to sell a toilet facility. And whilst putting all these things in the process, what we came to realize is that we started having some ramp in our sales. We have like a number of increases in our sales numbers, because it is easier for women to actually enter into your household. They have that dedicated time to enter into the household and talk to their fellow women and be able to make some kind of like closing on each of the sales that they try to present. One of the key things that we also find out during our deep dive is that most of the times our women who are supposed to trigger the decision making are in the market at the time when the sales agents are visiting the household. So what we try to do is to set up a sales table or sales shop within the markets that we find ourselves. So we set up the shops, and then the females who man the shops move within the market and try to present the Sama toilet facility also to them, to be able to make sure that they have the necessary, how do we call it, information about Sama and be able to promote Sama to the decision makers, which are the men in the house, for them to get a toilet facility. Whilst we did that, we also have like some significant numbers also in those sections. Again, when we developed in 2016, 2018, trying to develop the Shipmaster, which is the collection track, we actually tried to see how we can involve women to lead that process. So what we did is to publish the vacancy on our internal network. And just to say that one of the key things that we've also find out is to be able to get women involved in the process. It is also important to know how to draft, or should I say, label the role to make it more attractive or appealing to women to involve in. For instance, if you say we want women to apply for the role of facilitators, and it makes it difficult for a woman to do that because he's kind of like going to expose himself to more of like so to say the shit work. So we kind of decided to name that role as the Fecal/Management Fellowship, where it makes it easier for women to get involved. So we had a lady from the office who actually led in the call center, so she's able to receive the calls and screen the calls, be able to get feedback in terms of after service delivery, and then is able to also connect every feedback we have to other key staff within the office to do it. And one thing we also realized is that once the people calling, because most of the calls that comes in are from women that call. So in a household, if you go and dislodge the services, what happens is that the woman calls back to the office and say, okay, that was a good service, or I need an extra service, or this, probably give you some feedback to kind of like address the issue. So once they begin to know that it's women who are receiving and women who are interacting, it makes it easier and you can get like a true sense of what they did. We also allow the woman to lead on the management of the Fecal/track, which is the shift master track. So what they do is to do a routine maintenance with the operator to make sure that it's in good shape, and then they are able to manage the number of toilet facilities that we also dislodge. One other thing that is also interesting to say is that the lead for organizational relationship, in fact, we have other organizations that need our services on a routine basis. So maybe on like a monthly basis, they call for our services for us to come and dislodge the services. They are better off managing that relationship in terms of how frequent the people need our services, how we do the payment and all that. So it's one of the key interesting things that we also learned. Over the period, once we tried to also advance it, we tried to do some research work on how to get some value out of the sludge, which was led by also another woman in the office as a fellowship, where she was able to like go into the household, collect the Fecal/sludge samples, and then they facilitated that, taking the Fecal/sludge samples to the laboratories that we are working with. So we are working in conjunction with a university here in the northern region. So it picks up the sample, submitted to the lab. He facilitated the analysis process, reporting and analysis process. And then whilst we get that process done, we did the final analysis, and then we got to find out like we have like 4 potential products that we can develop out of the Fecal/sludge, depending on the characteristics or the quality of the sludge that we tested. So in this process, we were able to find that we will be able to develop black soldier fly larvae from the Fecal/sludge. We also discovered that we can do biogas and then biochar, and then also the vermicomposting also out of that. And between the vermicomposting and the black soldier fly, it gives us an opportunity also to develop those technologies into soil nutrients or fertilizers. And these are key things that which is still ongoing, and we are still trying to develop them into a bigger commercial scale product. We are likely to, from as it stands now, from the stakeholder engagement that we've done, we gave us a very good understanding of experiences in the past, and also the metrics that we use. We realize that we are likely more to align ourselves to the vermicomposting and the black soldier flies. And we hope to complete that study by July of this year and be able to develop a valuable product afterwards. One thing that we, in the whole process, we've tried to ask ourselves is, how are we able to develop this further into, or how can we able to kind of like mainstream our activity beyond just what we have done. And I would need your support on that if you can help answer some few questions in terms of how might we ensure that women desire, aspiration, and urgency are at the center of all products and services along the sanitation value chain. Again, the other question that I will also need your support on is how might we continuously make compelling case to cultivate women's interest in working in the sanitation value chain and circular economy? Again, we are asking this because we realize that although women plays a significant role in the sanitation value chain, there are very little that they can do in the process. And then also the thirdly, we want to know how does gender inclusiveness impact the selection of fecal slab treatment, technology, and technical design? These are three questions that I put on this forum for us to deliberate on and see how best we can help to develop women play a significant role in the sanitation value chain. Thank you.
We focus on all aspects of tropical marine biology. So we have an incineration toilet that is being installed here on Mokoloi. We're very excited about it because it's an alternative to waste disposal. We need to solve the problem of sewage in Hawaii in general.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sarit Shashidharan. I'm from Ernst & Young, EY. I'm part of EY's consulting practice focused on government and public sector. Today, I have this opportunity to present to you about our work we did in eastern part of India in a state called as Odisha. And as the title suggests, each for all and all for each, it's about inclusiveness, how we adopted inclusive practices in wash service delivery. I must admit that I am doing this presentation on behalf of many of my colleagues who are part of the technical support unit to the urban department in Odisha, and also the multiple government champions who have worked tirelessly towards what I'm going to present, and the community, people from the community, and most importantly, the women and transgender groups about whom I'm going to speak about. With that, I'll just start with my presentation. So basically it has three parts. I'm going to tell you about what we did. And the second part is how we went about it. And towards the end, the most important, the key takeaway and lessons which you all may want to take back. Starting with about our initiative. Odisha, a brief background. It's a state in eastern India. It's one of the leading state with as far as adoption of fecal sludge management practices concerned. And I'll flip back to 2016 when the state had absolutely no, proper treatment mechanism for fecal waste. It was just 2%. But over the past 4-5 years, through multiple programmatic interventions, now the state has almost 100% of the urban households having some form of safe fecal waste disposal means. While this grand milestone has been achieved, one of the key challenges that that Odisha faced in that journey was delivery of FSM or wash services through private sector. Odisha being primarily a rural state, there wasn't a significant presence of private sector in the state. So this had a significant problem in terms of service quality. To address that, the government looked at the possibility of engaging community-based organizations called as self-help group under one of the missions of the state called as Mission Shakti. It's a mission to engage more grassroots women-based self-help groups and federations in various activities of the government. So as I mentioned, I mean, this whole initiative focused on, addressing the gap in sanitation service delivery, but by using community-based organizations as a means to deliver that. So groups of women, and not just women, but transgender groups and sanitary workers were engaged as part of it to deliver multiple parts of the sanitation value chain, which I'll show in a while. This initiative led to economic empowerment and inclusiveness for sure, because we were, typically we engaged the urban poor communities as part of this service delivery, and in a way that helped to increase access to urban poor with regard to proper FSM services. So therefore, it was more inclusive in nature. It led to social empowerment of women and even more importantly, the transgender group, and gender equality was a critical linchpin of this whole initiative. And some numbers with regard to what happened, like while we're trying to address the problem of sanitation service delivery, it created a new opportunity, economic opportunity for these women and transgender group. So much so that the potential revenue is expected about $3 million US annually, and directly creating livelihood potential for 25,000 women and transgender individuals in urban Odisha, and indirectly impacting zero point 0.1 million. What you see here on the screen is how these opportunities were panned out across the value chain. Speaking of FSM, containment, emptying, transport, and treatment. So these groups, as community-based organizations, were engaged in not just construction of individual household latrines, IHLs, or community toilet and public toilet, and or septic treatment plant, but also the operation maintenance, O&M, of these infrastructure once created. And then other activities such as data collection, supporting the regulators in monitoring, tracking illegal disposal, and also in some cases provision of spares wherever the urban local body is in a quite remote location. So the numbers that you see is the number in terms of how many groups were engaged for each of these activities. So as you can see, the opportunities have been created not just in one particular area, but across the value chain, and for multiple groups. These are some of the glimpses of what I spoke in terms of how these groups are engaged in desludging operations, management of treatment plants, or even in increasing awareness among people about FSM. The groups undertake management of treatment plant as well as reuse recovery by doing co-composting. The image that you see on the right side is one of the transgender group in one of the largest cities of Odisha, known as Cuttack. With that, I'll move to the next part of my presentation, which is, I mean, you heard about what we have done. Now let's know more about how we went about it. So this community-led management is central to the government strategy. As I mentioned about Mission Shakti, which is like one of the pioneering missions of the state government. Under this, to bring this community-based organization, multiple thematic interventions were taken, but broadly speak about 5. First is what we did was, because this was a whole new initiative, we went about doing orientation and self-help orientation and sensitization of these SHGs, self-help groups, because for them also this is a totally new subject, and there are and to make it quite competitive among the various self-help groups, we would go about meeting these various self-help groups and then telling them what this job entails, sensitizing them more about what is FSM, and then undertake an evaluation process to screen the best among the various self-help groups, SHGs, or even some cases, there's another structure called as area level federation. Once the SHG or area level federation is selected, the next part is doing their technical capacity building, where we train them about what the job is about, give them hands-on training and classroom training as well. focus some of the aspects such as, how their own institutional strengthening, about strengthening their groups, looking at intra-group dynamics and addressing those. The another critical aspect is how do we strengthen the arrangement between the groups which are going to deliver the service and the government agency, which is the urban local body which hires these agencies for the service. So the critical element to strengthen that relationship is the service contract. So we focused on the contract in terms of it having key elements like wages, termination clauses, other aspects like insurance, and so on and so forth. Created guidelines and SOPs which could guide these groups, once they complete the training and are handling it on a regular basis. And this was started through few pilots. It started with 4 largest cities of Odisha taking it up. Now it has been scaled to 10 cities. And as we speak, in a month, it will be scaled to an additional 30, which means about 40 cities will have septic treatment plants, or FSTPs, as we call it generally, managed by community-based organizations led by women or transgender groups. And this is how the entire process was carried out. I just showed it on a timeline. The orientation and identification process starts, over typically 2-3 weeks from the day you start. And then once you have selected a group, there is intensive handholding and capacity building to train them about the job that they're going to take over. And about 12 weeks or 3 months from the start date, the contract is finalized, where both parties have understood the contract, which both parties mean the self-help group and the ULB personnel. And there is this transfer of O&M, operation maintenance activity, to the self-help group. And then starts a long journey towards handholding and supporting this group. These are some of the pictures of the orientation that we give them. As I said, both on-site and in some cases classroom-based also. This is a transgender group, the left side, whom we signed the government, the Cuttack city government signed the contract with to manage the O&M of septic treatment plant. And similarly with women self-help group in one more city called as Sambalpur. Now, let me come to the third and most significant part and the final part of my presentation, which is the lessons. What we have learned from this intervention over the past year is that there is still significant need for financial inclusion and linkage of these women self-help groups, WSHGs, with banks. And this problem gets more aggravated with transgender group. There is definite need of regular training and handholding and giving them continuous exposure visits, not just to new sites, but also cross-learning between peer-to-peer learning, like one group speaking to another group and learning from each other. It's not straightforward yet in terms of the social cultural barriers. I mean, we all know that for women and for transgender groups, there are still many cultural and social barriers compared to we men. There are challenges with regard to collectivizing women into self-help groups itself. It's not, it doesn't get formed naturally. There is an effort to collectivize them into groups. And for the stakeholders from, let's say, from the general public or a government, or even for us, it's a lesson in terms of gender sensitivity. How do you work with transgender groups? So that kind of gender sensitivity training is extremely important for the stakeholders. So when we speak of training, it's not just for the self-help groups, but also for the people who are going to work with them. Like even the desludging operators who would go and empty in the plant, they need to know how to work with women groups or transgender group. Similarly, there is a lack of gender sensitive or gender friendly uniforms or personal protective equipment as well. I mean, unfortunately, most of these equipments or uniforms are designed for men, and there is a problem of fitting, and which creates a difficulty in using the personal protective equipment. Ease of payment is a most important area that has to be ensured, where timely payments are done to the SHGs of Federation and ensuring that delays do not occur. As we go, I mean, for us, the target now is that we are targeting septic treatment plant for all our cities. So we'll have 180 SCTPs. Some of the key areas we are focusing on is how do we ensure compliance to SOPs, have gender sensitivity in all our dealings and interactions, emphasis on health and safety of the self-help groups, their regular capacity building and sensitization, and ensure that there are new revenue opportunities to reuse forward linkage, such as, how do you use compost or treated wastewater and create revenue out of that. The key takeaways for all of you. Number one, this community management of sanitation facility definitely has a positive impact on some of the SDG goals. Some of you might be looking, at this video from other parts of Asia and Africa. This has tremendous replication in terms of, if you have a similar situation where you have a lack of, you need local livelihood opportunity and also are looking to strengthen wash services, this model could be of relevance to you. And there are some key aspects for success of this model. Like I mentioned earlier, like we got to focus on continuous building of technical capabilities. Financial literacy for this group is quite critical for them to learn how to manage their finances, how to, like for example, when they manage septic treatment plant or FSTPs, currently their annual turnover has sort of doubled. For them, for these groups, it's important to know how to manage this kind of finance, how to manage bank loans. Liaising with government agency is an important aspect, because when we talk about WASH, it's generally the government which delivers those services and government which is giving them the contract. So learning how the nuances of working and dealing with government agencies is going to be important. And last but not the least, currently these are self-help groups, which are formed because of their locality where they are associated, working together. They are right now federations of group. What's required for them to grow further is that entrepreneurial environment where they are continuously aspiring to innovate in whatever shape and size and scale they can do. And for that, the ecosystem is required both from the government as well as some initiatives done by the self-help groups as well. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation. You heard me talk about what we did in terms of the intervention with women self-help groups and transgenders. You heard how we went about the whole process, and towards the end, some of the key lessons and takeaways. Thank you so much for your time. Comments about what I have covered in my presentation today, please leave them in the comment section. Please also consider joining one of the live discussion sessions to share your thoughts. You can find a schedule for these sessions on the agenda page. So look forward to having you there.
Hi, my name is Vaneshka Eliatambi. Welcome to the Mainstreaming Gender in Urban Sanitation Systems presentation. I am a senior associate at Iris Group based out of Chapel Hill, North Carolina. The core gender concepts that we went with for the CWISE work with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation were gender mainstreaming, gender intentional, and gender transformative. I'm sure most of you know what these terms stand for, but I'm going to give you a quick run over. Gender mainstreaming is the process of integrating a gender lens into all aspects of strategic initiatives and into the culture and systems and operations. The goal is to achieve mainstreaming to achieve gender equality. Gender intentional is the investment is designed to reduce gender gaps and barriers in access to resources or increase evidence base around gender gaps. And gender transformative is works to transform restrictive gender norms to be more equitable, removing gender-related barriers that lead to unsustainable discriminatory utility systems. Why does gender mainstreaming matter, and why is it a priority for CWISE? The CWISE vision itself builds gender into its strategy. In CWISE, they look to shift its narratives prioritizing inclusion, safety, and equity. And the contributions of gender mainstreaming, our sanitation systems serve all people, including women and gender minorities. The second CWISE vision is to shift from technology and hardware to systems level change. And on the gender mainstreaming side of things, the contribution is gender mainstreaming strengthens sanitation systems. Again, to CWISE, urban sanitation is a public sector good, and it is essential to good governance. And the contribution from gender is it opens the door for more centralized gender intentional interventions. There's also a no one size fits all approach. So it's very contextual, and gender mainstreaming provides context specific sociocultural impacts and leverage points. CWISE principles. We have service outcomes and service approaches. The service outcomes are services are inclusive and equitable. And service approaches are that gender and social equity are ensured in the design and delivery of city sanitation services. So those who are marginalized, who are women, children, those without formal land tenure or access to sewer are intentionally engaged in the decision-making system. And marginalized customers' specific needs, values, and constraints are understood and incorporated into hiring and service delivery and planning. So I'm going to move on to the city level action plans. We carried out action plans and gender analyses in 7 cities. The objectives of this were, we'll go over objectives, we'll go over the phases of work, cities and partners, emergent themes, leveraging action plans, and then any time for questions as well. The objectives were to collaborate with the cities to conduct a gender analysis to capture and build on ongoing gender work, understanding that many of these cities already have gender work that is ongoing, and we wanted to build on that, to identify city-specific gender-related barriers and opportunities, and to develop responses. And then to prepare and build consensus for a gender action plan for advancing each city's objectives, to support grantees and city leads to integrate gender, and to prioritize and select specific actions. So it was a very collaborative process with the cities themselves in both Asia and Africa. The phases of work were that we first consulted with each of the cities in phase 1, and then we did city-specific desk reviews. We had a large meeting with BMGF and all of the city partners in Manila, and then went on to do prep for gender analysis. The second phase, of course, was the analysis itself in 7 CWISE cities across the world. And then building out user-friendly gender action plans based on city-specific priorities. So each action plan was specific to the city. In phase 3, there was partner-specific knowledge sharing that continued. And then a multi-sectoral global literature review was also carried out, and guidance for gender mainstreaming in urban sanitation was established. The city partners I'd like to recognize are the Kampala Capital Authority, the city of Khulna, Lusaka Water and Sewerage, SNB in Bangladesh, in the Indian Institute for Human Settlements, CEPT University, and the Narsapur Municipal Corporation, as well as the Greater Warangal Municipal Corporation and the Administrative Staff Colleges of India. Some of the emergent themes, and I don't have really the time to go over all of the themes that emerged, but here is a snapshot, sort of a 35,000 foot level snapshot of the emergent themes. They were access to toilet facilities. How did they differ according to gender? How did solid waste management affect women and gender minorities differently? The reuse of fecal sludge products, how can we integrate gender in this? Gendered roles across the sanitation value chain, entrepreneurship and business ownership across the sanitation value chain. This is quite important, considering that for the most part, women and gender minorities are not included in the sanitation value chain, traditionally speaking. And so there's a major push in the last few years to include women and gender minorities. What is the legal and policy level framework that affects this work? What are the country level policies that are gender inclusive and gender intentional? What is the stigma related to the sanitation value chain? Governance and political representation. How are women and gender minorities represented? What is the user interface? How does the user interface in each of the cities affect women and gender minorities differently, and how can we improve this? Inclusive design and maintenance and use. We also went into the cost benefits of engaging women and gender minorities, so to make both the social and the financial case for this. And then community and household sanitation, land tenure and property ownership. How does it affect women and gender minorities differently in sanitation? Menstrual hygiene management was a big issue because this is only now coming to the forefront. And then labor force participation in sanitation. There is much more behind all of these tiles, which I can't really go into in this short presentation. So each of the cities decided to leverage the action plans in their own ways, and it's really been quite exciting to see which of the recommendations each of the cities have gone with. So in the case of Khulna in Bangladesh, the city action plan was not only adopted in Khulna, the city, but it was actually adopted as a countrywide strategy to include women and gender minorities. And that has been super exciting to see. A similar process in Kampala and also another similar process in Lusaka. And I'm not highlighting each of the cities and how they have adopted the action plans here, but I encourage you to look at the action plans. They're available, and for you to see how we worked with the cities to assist them in their embracing of the action plans. So as I mentioned, each of the cities is leveraging the action plans in their own way. In the case of Khulna, we have a city action plan that has morphed into more of a country level strategy to engage women and gender minorities. Similar processes in Lusaka and Kampala. Not enough time to really go into all of the details. I wanted to thank all of the cities for embracing the work on engaging gender in citywide integrative sanitation, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, all of the local consultants who contributed to this work, and also all of you for participating in this session. Thank you. If you have any questions or comments about what I have covered in my presentation today, please leave them in the comments section. Please also consider joining one of the live discussion sessions to share your thoughts. You can find the schedule of these sessions on the agenda page.
People in Afghanistan cities mainly rely on on-site sanitation technologies without proper sludge management system. Borda is currently working on preparation of citywide FSM plans for 5 large cities of Afghanistan, which will address the existing challenges.
Hi, this is Priscilla from IIHS. I work with the citywide inclusive sanitation project in Tiruchirappalli. I'm here to present to you the women managed community toilet model that has proved itself to be sustainable and has shown resilience even during difficult times like the COVID. The SHE teams has been functional in Trichy almost from 1999, when the city corporation had constructed around 300 community toilets. These toilets have been functional for almost 20 years and they cater to almost 1 lakh users every day. These SHE teams are people organized from the local communities who are volunteers who are willing to maintain the community toilet in their areas. They have been mobilized and been sensitized and trained on how to maintain the community toilets. And they have also been federated into a small federation called WAVE that has also been sustainable for almost 20 years. The citywide inclusive sanitation project is now trying to ensure that their institutional, financial, and operational sustainability is ensured. They are mentoring the WAVE to make sure the WAVE becomes a mutual support or a mentor of these SHE teams. When you look at the institute, because it is on capacity building and federation of the community members and also depends on social audits and inclusion of the community, it's found to be quite stable. The financial sustainability is because a larger number of community toilets are maintained together. Some of those that are making profit are able to cross-subsidize those that have low footfall. And in addition, we are also trying to find other income generation activities that can be taken up by those community toilets that has low footfall. These women being socially inclined, we find that these women also go up for a lot of customer feedback. Even when they are appointing people, we find that they give employment to the physically challenged, to the deprived people, and thus they are found to be quite socially sustainable as well. Regarding the role of SHE team, as already said, the SHE teams were mainly formed for operational maintenance of the community toilet, as there's a caretaker always sitting there. It's maintained clean and safe. Not only that, there is financial management and bookkeeping system that is put to place. There is a record keeping activity that is done, and there's a reporting that is being done to the city corporation and to the WAVE Federation. Periodic self-assessment as well as periodic self-assessment is done by the SHE teams. And you also find that there's a lot of ownership by the community because they are from the local area. Further, they also support the other SHE teams in their area that require their support. With regard to the role of WAVE, you will find that WAVE actually in the initial stages go to areas where there is no SHE team, motivate those people to start, sensitize them, and also give them the financial support to undertake the activity for the first 1 month. Later, their role is more on licensing with the city administration, monitoring, and whenever required, when there's a major repair or other activity that need to be undertaken, they give interest-free loan to them. And you also find that in some cases, they have to play the role of conflict resolution among the SHE team members, SHE team to community, and other activities as well. When you look at the operational improvements that we have been undertaking very systematically, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and other activities have been systemized, and implementation protocols are into place. A very simplified record keeping system is being placed. What we are trying to ensure is a repair and maintenance protocol, as many of them are quite old. We are trying to institutionalize the repair and maintenance protocol. And WAVE has also started to have frequent visits, and there's a very clear SOP for WAVE on activities that they need to be undertaking. For accountability, you find that the SHE team has display boards, self-assessment scorecard, and WAVE conducts monthly zonal meetings, surprise visit. And there's also a local NGO partner who helps to sustain the whole functioning of the system. What we are trying to improvise is on the electronic client feedback system that the city administration is trying to enforce, so that a better customer feedback can be received. With regard to the institutional strengthening, the SHE team has a very systematic meeting that has been now institutionalized. And apart from that, we are insisting that the decision-making process is built through consensus. We are also trying to establish a grievance redressal mechanism in place. WAVE has now started up a lot of other activities like the zonal meetings, and they are also trying to form new SHE teams. As already said, the city has around 300 community toilets, of which around 150 are under the fold of WAVE. They are trying to have more SHE teams formed so that the entire city can be covered through it. With regard to financial sustainability, you find that there's a small user fee that is being collected, record keeping in place, periodic audit by our statutory auditors are also being undertaken. And you find that WAVE is trying to cross-subsidize wherever there's a profit-making public toilet available, then they are trying to cross-subsidize those community toilets that are in need. What has to be still strengthened is the additional income generating activities that can be undertaken by cities that has low footfall. And with regard to capacity building, you find that a large number of trainings have been conducted with regard to institutional strengthening, record keeping, maintenance, and all those things. We are also planning to have other trainings on leadership building also, so that the SHE teams become more sustainable. And you find that even during period like COVID-19, the SHE teams have shown, have been very effective. Though there was no transport system, the community toilet continued to function. You find that this was one of the most crucial period when the community toilets were needed, because most of the users were at home. The usage of community toilets increased, and these people, women actually showed a lot of strength. They continued to maintain it clean and neat. And whenever we had to pass certain communication, like the safety protocols or social distancing or whatever that is, these people have been very, very effective to take down the message to their community. As most of these community toilets are in low-income settlements, we find that their role was very, very powerful. And when we look at the other impact created by these community led model of maintaining community toilets, there were a lot of press appreciating them for even continuing their work during the COVID time. The government of India has awarded it with the FICCI award for best non-profit model in sanitation. Lot of cross-subsidizing of expenses for low footfall community toilets are being undertaken. Nearly 400 women get employment through this system. Not only that, we also find that because they function as a federation, they have been able to attract corporate social responsibility funding, which has been invested into the improvement of their community toilets. And thus we find these community toilets are a very effective way of managing community toilets. If you have any questions or comments about what I have covered in this presentation today, please leave them in the comment section. Please also consider joining us in one of the live discussion sessions to share your thoughts. We can find a schedule for these sessions on the agenda page. Thank you.